time is it? What time is it?
7:33.
34, according to
Somewhere in there.
Okay, let's have a learning how to tell time session first. Oh, it does say sign in.
Yes, but I have no idea what username you're supposed to use.
You didn't try to hack it?
No.
Try to senior or?
All right.
I would go over there except there's a crowd in the senior center. Well, I don't think I really need to go online to Okay, is everyone cool about us starting?
Sure.
Yeah, let's get going here. We can hit on this after as well. Let's talk about it. I mean, let's just say it pretty quickly. So we're meeting tonight.
Yes.
And maybe. But the idea is that, correct me if I'm wrong, at our December meeting, we should be ready to go, and that's when we should start the clock ticking for the 65 days. And we have to have a minimum of 65 days to start public hearings.
It's helpful.
Is that 65 days before you start, before you can call a public hearing? Or do you have to have the whole process completed in 60? I don't know what the 65 days means.
Michael Looney's going to explain that.
Okay.
I mean, I could, but
Okay.
I know it's one of those. It's really just it's just a prompt.
Make me feel a little more important. The 65 days, again, for the record, Michael Looney, Associate Principal Planner with Mylone and McBroom. Here with me is Tim Baird, a planner in our office in Cheshire. The 65 days, what that refers to is the review period that must occur before the public hearing can be held. So typically what you do is say, you look at the date when you're ready to go, and you say, get out the calendar, say what's 65 days from now, and let's say that day is January 21st. Say we can hold the public hearing anytime after January 21st. And so then
65 days puts us in February now.
if you're starting in December, yeah, I'm just using a hypothetical date. That's the day, the 65th day. After that day, you can hold the public hearing as close to that as you want.
Okay, so it's 65 days in effect for the public, giving the public an opportunity to review the plan.
That is correct.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
There are several sort of technical requirements. You have to send the draft plan first to the town clerk's office so that it's available for everyone to come in and look at. It's usually a good idea to have one in the land use or planning office, depending on what you have as a town. Different towns have different things. In a place such as Woodbridge with the level of activity, definitely the library, any sort of place where senior citizens might be coming would also be a good place to have a
Post
copy.
one on the website.
Yes.
And you have to, by statute, within, I believe it is 30 days of the date of the public hearing, the draft plan has to be on the town website.
But you just do it initially.
And you just do it all at once because it's just simply easier than trying to keep track of all the deadlines. The other thing that you have to do is you have to send the plan to the South Central Regional Council of Governments for their review.
Well, that all happens at the beginning of the 65 days.
That happens at the beginning of the 65 days.
Everything always happens at the beginning of the 65 days.
And perhaps the most important thing is you have to send it to the Board of Selectmen unless you have a representative town meeting. But in this case, because you have a Board of Selectmen, you would send them a copy. The Board of Selectmen, if I'm remembering my statute correctly, has the option of holding their own public hearing. And then they can vote up and down whether they approve the plan or not. But the Planning and Zoning Commission, I believe, can go forward with approval if they don't receive any sort of yay or nay vote from the Board of Selectmen.
Well, wait a minute, we have to hear from the Board of Selectmen before we take a vote?
No, you don't have to. You don't have to. It's,
And what happens, and even if they vote it down?
If they voted down, I believe, and I wish I had the statute right in front of me, but I believe there may be a requirement that you need a 2/3 vote of the
Planning and zoning.
of the planning and zoning to
I don't think it's
override
gonna
that.
happen, but.
Right.
To
Those are
override
the negative declaration of the, yeah. So there are all these little nuances that can come up. They, in every POCD we've done, we've either received no comment back or just, yes, it looks good. So,
Have you ever had, a lot of adverse comments from the public where the board had to go back and make changes to it?
you mean the planning and zoning?
We don't have to
commission?
do anything.
Right.
It is entirely up to you. When you get comments during that 65-day period, people can submit comments. And then, of course, obviously at the public hearing, they can submit comments. The Planning and Zoning Commission has to take those under advisement and then decide, yes, this is a good point. A lot of people seem to be in favor of that. I think we should make this change. Other ones, it was, there really wasn't a groundswell for it, and we think it's, not appropriate this time. It's, up to your discretion to that extent.
Two questions on that. One is it only one public hearing that's required?
One public hearing is required.
What is normal? Let me ask, what do most towns do?
The last town I worked in, we had one public hearing. We had a very robust public outreach, similar to what we did here, where we had a lot of folks come out, 80, 90, 100 people at each of our workshops, and that seemed like that got everybody's opinion out there. And then when we went to public hearing, 5 people came.
Really?
And they said, we'd like you to change one parcel on the future land use map from blue to green, from municipal to open space. And we said, okay, because there was a trail on it. Okay, fair enough. And closed the public hearing in 45 minutes. Other larger communities, you tend to get a larger crowd. Some of the cities that with the mid-sized cities, 60, 65,000 people, you sometimes have to continue the public hearing to another night. But you only usually have to continue it once.
And second question is, if you make changes to your draft,
Just start all over.
do you start over for the 65 days again, or is it only if it's major changes, or how does that whole thing work?
If you collect comments during the 65-day period, and you basically have a running list of what you've received to date, then you take everything you got from the public hearing, and you lay all that out. You figure out which ones are substantive, which you feel you need to make the changes.
Sure.
You go through as a commission and decide what you want to do. If there is something that is just, just a huge issue where you may have to relook at something, I've never come across a situation where that's happened. What usually happens is that the commission looks at all of these pieces of feedback they've gotten and said, okay, we had our draft, and we're going to amend it so that this section now reads as follows. And this, on the action agenda, we're going to change this action from short-term to mid-term, and we're going to, and then you approve the plan with those conditions that these changes be made. And then when you produce the final document, you have all those changes and edits made.
Oh, so you don't have to go through the 65-day process?
No, you don't have to keep going through the 65-day.
Okay, that's what
period.
okay. Thank you.
Otherwise, for relatively minor changes, you could be going on for...
No, that's what I meant, but if there were substantive changes, then you may have to go through the 65-day period again?
I've never seen that happen.
Okay, thank you.
So that's kind of the logistics of going forward. I think tonight what we've got is, I think you should have received this, the action agenda in sort of its more finalized form, we're going to obviously put this, and this is this 20-page document that you have here.
Do you have this on PDF that we can email?
Yes, I do, actually. Yep. And I think that's what I did send the first time, was a PDF to Chris.
No, I don't think we got this. Maybe, would have Chris gotten it? I don't know, Chris.
This is the first time I'm seeing it.
Yeah, I think I sent it to Chris about, I'll have to go back and look at my emails. It was before the
Well,
last
I will
schedule.
tell you, it's actually already changed, so.
Okay.
This is,
We're going to make some additional edits to it based upon what, some feedback that we've gotten and from the.
Oh, so this has not been changed yet?
No, this was, I wanted to keep it consistent as the same thing we did. But we've got all the proposed changes, which are,
can you go over those with us?
yeah, sure. Some of the things that we were looking at were, again, just based upon some of the things that we heard and looking at these issues of not having a distinct economic development staff person, but really having a part-time planner and using some existing staff resources to sort of fill some of the roles that we saw this economic development person filling in. We have discussion of accessory units. We wanted to kind of clarify that a little bit, is that what we're really intending there is sort of in-law living situations.
Right.
And I don't think that was really clear enough.
But they're not just accessories, they could be like carved out of a house.
Carved accessory in the term that they have an additional living facility in them, but yes, not necessarily standalone buildings, but could be carved out of existing structures. Adding a little bit more meat to recommendations in terms of bike paths, bike lanes, having them on Route 63, 67, 69, 114, Rimmon Road and Ansonia Road. We wanted to make sure that we've gotten all those clearly laid out.
And they're not literal lanes, they're actually, they just put that bike thing on the road, so it kind of warns people that they're.
Yeah, their technical term is called sharrows, because you're sharing the road.
Right.
And they're arrows,
Okay.
so we get sharrows.
Sure.
New Haven uses them a lot in places where they don't have the right-of-way width to necessarily designate a lane, a dedicated lane. We want to expand also on the sidewalks in the town center. We had touched on that a little bit about better connecting the high school to some of the facilities like the library, but we want to make that a little bit more concrete, a little bit more expansive. Down in the village, I don't think we were really specific in
Where do you
that.
have the thing on the sidewalks? Are you going through this thing, or are you just?
No, I'm just going through my list of,
Okay, I was wondering where I'm going through this.
Yes.
These are just the changes that you guys talked about, roughly.
What he's talking about.
yeah. These,
Actually,
yeah.
there were more clarifications. They actually, I don't think there were any.
There were- yeah, there were
There really
very
weren't
few.
changes. They were
Right.
everything that all of us have been talking about, but just clarifications.
Just clarifications, so.
Changes would be too extreme.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So one of the modifications or clarifications we have, there's been a lot of discussion of the village district and sort of the architectural precedents that we would be thinking about, and we wanted to make it clear that a pattern book of some type should be developed in the village that again relies on, isn't just a pattern book taken from California and dropped in, but is relying upon the historical precedent of the built form that you see in Woodbridge and down in the village, so that it's consistent with, the kind of forms you find down there. rather than-
Basically taking the historic houses that are already here.
Yeah, and sort of sticking with that style to be consistent with what's already there. On-street parking in the village, we wanted to kind of, get into a little bit of the nuts and bolts of it, a little bit more in terms of how much width you would actually need if you wanted to do parking on one side of the street versus having it on both sides, so that people could better understand, what that means in terms of when we say on-street parking.
So you're gonna call that out on the plan?
Yeah, right, that's, we're intending to put that on the village plan map that we have. And a lot of just hitting, I think, a little bit stronger on a number of points that we already have on the action agenda, about maintaining historic rural character of the town. And, as a good 90% of the town really is not in a heavily developed state, and we want to kind of reiterate that. Blending the existing, residential that we have in place, again, over a large portion of the town, with the open space assets, and then having the village as sort of the center of economic activity. Make sure that that sort of hierarchy is really understood in terms of the action items and recommendations. Again, we mentioned this, maybe need to beef this up a little bit, the need to protect things like stone walls, the winding roads that we have, the tree-lined nature of a lot of these roads, maintaining relatively high caliper trees along roads rather than just having, very nice specimen trees getting cut down and replaced with 1.5-inch caliber saplings.
So, and that pretty much comes from like when we approved these 2 or 3 lot on Stotter's property.
Okay.
We made them keep the stone walls along the street and keep the streets along the street and the trees along the street. That's the same, that's what this is coming from.
Right. And even when you get down in the village with new development, new infill development, that'll certainly come along in the course of the years, you want to have a very strong recommendation in there, making sure that trees and sidewalks and streetscape are provided when these developments are done, that they don't just come in and you have a sort of a blank
And that
area.
comes from one of the charrettes where someone stood up and
Yeah,
talked about that, and I thought it was like one of the best things that was said at the charrette.
yeah, that was something we
Streets the same.
got out of those sessions that I think we need to strengthen a little bit. There was also discussion of the need to save or protect particular vistas in the town, and a couple of those have been identified. I didn't have any directly off the top of my head, but after doing some research, talking to some folks, there's the Calabrese Farm, there's some property east of North Peace Road.
Do you know which piece of property the board told whether they was this presentation? I was like, go over and never know we're going to see that hill. I still didn't actually get it.
It was between North Pease Road and Amity Road, is that what you're talking about?
I think so.
Yeah, so.
But it would basically have chopped off the top of that hill driving up. So I'd almost say that could be considered one of these vistas we
Potentially.
look at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you probably, at that, just trying to picture in my mind, you probably have a pretty good view going down towards West Rock Ridge.
I mean, I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking that we should point out these vistas just in case any of those people decide to sell their property, which is fine. Except we want to be able to, I think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm thinking that planning and zoning would have a little more control over that if we've got in our POCD, this is one of our main vistas. So, and I actually kind of grabbed it from, Guilford has this thing where you can develop the land, but they don't let you take down all the stone walls.
Right.
They don't let you take down, it's actually pretty cool. I don't know if it works, but reading it from another town looks great.
Yeah.
But anyway, but again, it's the idea of saving, so you don't lose that rural character of what everybody says they want in Woodbridge. So
Yeah.
that's where this idea comes from. And if you can think of any other vistas
Yeah.
in your, you have 30 days. You have 30 days. Maybe 20.
There are some nice ones of West Rock from like Justin Road and all those, but those areas are all developed, so.
Well, and West Rock isn't Yeah, that's always gonna be, that's always above though.
Yeah.
The
So,
West Rock's, I mean, so really the vista would be preserving West Rock,
right.
which we don't have to worry about.
You don't have to worry about it.
But it's the same idea.
And finally, some kind of design elements with future development, particularly restaurants down in the village, encouraging space for outdoor eating, getting more people out onto the street and providing a little bit more activity, rather than having just parking in the front and people going into a restaurant. You know, it's a lot of towns have really, it's interesting, you know, a lot of it started in New Haven, and then all of a sudden, tons of suburban towns now, people are just throwing chairs and benches out there every which way, and so you want to do it in a controlled manner, so you have some site control over how it's laid out, but...
In Westport, you can actually sign up for parking spaces for the summer in front of these restaurants.
Yeah.
And they all
That's
do
correct.
it. They all do it.
And although we've
We
sort of pulled back from the element of tax breaks as a way of incentivizing certain things, one that I think would be particularly strong would be having some sort of tax break, and I'm not exactly sure what form it would take at this point, but for someone developing an arts center, studio, or incubator space. You know, if someone's creating, you know, a incubator work-live space somewhere down in the village, you know, 2 or 3 stories, at a prime intersection, you know, that would certainly be a type of development that would be, you know, would be appropriate and would be, you know, useful in the village. So those were just some of the things over the brainstorming over the past couple of.
One of the other thing is, as far as a town center, is the, like some kind of a coffee or food place like outside the library there, and that
Right.
natural
Carving out
courtyard area of
a
actually
little courtyard
moving it
space
to a
for that.
courtyard. I have to confess, I didn't know until the other day that all those things that look like doors don't actually open. It's a complete letdown, actually. But they should.
Oh, within the firehouse, that would have been
Well, the firehouse,
the old firehouse.
one of the things we talked about was this thing outside because people could actually see it. The firehouse seems to have a full agenda, which I just recently heard about as far as the
Potential uses.
Was it the gym is going?
firemen are moving the stuff out of there into the new shed, which hasn't been built yet. And then the rec gym moves in. And then there's something else that moves over there. So it's not a lot of, it seems like it's being
Spoken for.
yeah, but again, but the idea behind this was to do something outdoors.
Year round?
Well, I probably wouldn't go out there in January.
Right.
But I mean, the idea is you want to see
About
people. I mean, it's a
that.
traffic
Yeah.
calming thing, it's, you know, so, there's nothing in the center of town that's gonna make any money,
Right.
so it might as well be something social. So that was the idea of letting everybody know, see things that are social.
Right. So we're going to be incorporating these things into the action agenda, and also going through the text to make sure everything lines up. That's something I'll get into in a little bit in terms of our next steps. One other thing, and no, Tim, if you could pass these out right now. We've done, what am I doing? I need to take one and give you the rest. As part of our POCDs, we like to do a state and regional plan consistency section, just to kind of hammer home the point that all the things that the town is enshrining in its POCD are consistent with the 2013-2018 State Conservation and Development Policies Plan. There's 2 components to that plan. There's about an 88-page text-based document with a number of growth management principles contained within it. and things that the state likes to see local POCDs conform with. Tim has done a pretty good synopsis here of how each of these 6 growth management principles from the state plan are consistent with what all of our work has done in putting together Woodbridge's new POCD. The state plan also contains what's called a locational guide map. And in past state plans, there was always some confusion because the locational guide map often got used. It had specific policies tied to it. It laid out different parts of the state as village areas, and growth areas, conservation areas, neighborhood preservation areas. And a lot of people really got concerned about, well, should our generalized land use plan in our POCD mesh identically with what the state plan has? And that was never really the intention of it, but that's sort of how it got interpreted. So this go around in 2013, with the new 5-year state plan, the state made it very clear that this locational guide map that they have is really meant to serve as a tool for state agencies that are looking to fund what they call growth-related projects in different parts of the state, and help them make decisions about where state dollars should be invested into projects within municipalities. So direct consistency with the locational guide map, which is actually on page 3. Unfortunately, the state mapping software which generates this does not generate a legend,
I was going to say, what are all the colors?
which baffles me. I don't know why it's like that, but I will give you a little bit of a rundown here. The areas that are red, of which you see, if you look down in the bottom right corner, most of New Haven is red. These are what's called priority funding areas. So these are areas where the state feels that its agencies, if they're doing growth-related projects, should generally go in these areas. So these are perfectly fine areas to do a growth-related project. When you get into the various shades of orange and yellow, you have what's called balanced priority funding areas. And these are areas that combine elements for consideration in conservation and elements to be considered in terms of being proactive in development. So you may have an area that has, they have criteria and you get a score of 0 or 1 for these different criteria. So let's say you have a section of Woodbridge, let's say one of the orange areas sort of in the center of the map. It may be orange because it has slightly more development criteria than it does conservation criteria. It may have some sort of utility access. It may be along a bus line, within a certain distance from a bus line. Those all get you development criteria points. Conservation points, on the other hand, you get from having things like forests and protected open space nearby and things like that. As you get lighter, as you go towards the yellows, they're still balanced priority funding areas, but you're starting to get a little bit heavier in terms of there are more conservation criteria than there are development criteria. So when the state agencies look at funding different projects, they have to take that into consideration, that this is, the red area is really, shouldn't be too much of a problem with doing a growth-related project, but as you get further out into these oranges and yellows, you really got to think long and hard about whether this is the right place to make that investment.
So this is state generated?
This is state generated by OPM. Office of
And
Policy.
these colors are consistent with other towns, as far as, how their legends are?
Yes.
Based on the same color?
Exactly.
What would gray be?
The dark gray are protected lands.
Oh, okay.
And so those are ones that are kind of, no-brainers, off-limits. You're not going to do a growth-related project on West Rock, for example. And you can see sort of the more conservation-related ones, such as the water company land up in the right-hand corner. So we've really just included this as a point of reference and kind of courtesy, but in looking at it and then looking at our future land use plan, which we've got up there, there aren't any inconsistencies between the two maps in terms of the land uses that we're proposing for the future and what they've got on this map. So it's always good to make sure there isn't any glaring differences that you would have to explain when you sent the POCD up to the state. The Regional Plan of Conservation and Development, that again is a document that was produced, I believe, it was 2008, updated in 2009. It doesn't have a proposed future land use plan for the entire region, which is what I would like to compare it against, but it doesn't have that component. So we just look through and see, is there anything that we're proposing in the POCD for Woodbridge that's wildly inconsistent with anything that the regional plan has. The regional plan is a very good compendium of all the information about demographics, housing, labor force, economic development, infrastructure. Essentially, it's a big POCD for the entire region. Has a lot of maps on existing sewer service. In fact, each municipality has its own sewer service map contained within the regional POCD. So we just go through it, make sure there isn't anything that jumps out as being inconsistent. But this isn't mandatory. The state statute doesn't say you have to have this as part of the POCD. We just do it so that if anybody wants to, take a deeper look, they can see where we were coming from in terms of determining that we were consistent with the state and regional plan. So that's the other section. And then really the big component that we've spent some time, considerable amount of time going over.
Do you have copies? Yes, we have.
Great. Got those?
Did I bring this? No, they were all, they're on there.
Excellent. This is our current future land use plan for the town. I'll just go through.
Future.
What's that?
Current future.
Our current future. Current as in this is the one that we are working with right now, provided you guys don't find something that needs to be radically changed. I'll just go through the definitions really quick. The low-density single-family residential, the lightest yellow that you see most of the town colored as, those are properties that are designated for single-family residential development on lots of an acre and a half or greater. So again, obviously that's going to be most of the town based upon the development patterns that we have already and what we see going forward in the future. Moderate density single-family residential are single-family homes on lots of less than an acre and a half. A lot of these lots, you'll see them, clustered, here and there. Not a whole lot of them. Probably most of them predate, were carved out prior to the zoning regulation of, an acre and a half. So they may be older lots, and that's why they're coming up like that. But there's really no foreseeable need to change the level of density that's going to occur on those lots. Two-family residential is actually, a lot of the two-family residential is sort of folded into what becomes our village residential down in the village area. I believe there's only one property there off of a little spur off of Bradley Road as it crosses over by Connell's Pond that's still two-family. Most of the two-family has now fallen within what we're going to get to in a minute, which is the village residential. Agricultural, we've identified the properties that have, in discussion with town staff and looking at the assessor's database and working with the open space folks, the properties that are designated as agriculture. Commercial office and commercial retail services, again, these are smaller properties in and around the village area. We have the two right up at Center Road and Amity Road. Obviously the deli and the property across the street, but then also a couple of properties to the west of Litchfield Turnpike over in industrial park area of the village. The two, I think really the two critical ones are the village mixed use and the village residential. The village mixed use basically encompasses the area that we're defining as the village, minus those established residential areas that are a little bit higher density than the rest of the town. So it's primarily the commercial land that exists there now.
Which streets, the higher density areas at the end of the village mixed use, where is that? What streets are those?
Which end are we looking at here?
This is village mixed use is where Crest is and
Up there, yeah, that's,
Above that, at the other side, the other end.
Is it possible to have a separate map just for,
So we can read streets.
because there's so much going on in that resident, the mixed-use district,
yeah, we should
that
have,
you can't make out where one stops, one
pull
starts.
this over and look
We've
at
got
this.
the- yes, maybe that's a hell of a lot.
large version. One thing we can do is.
Should have a separate sheet.
We could do it, we could just have an inset. Yeah.
Exactly, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect.
Yep, we'll do that, that's fine. So you can see where the village residential, which is the, so, and actually, yeah, bring that over here. A little bit clearer when you see it at 7 times the size that you're trying to look at.
So those, that legend is a little different, doesn't have the striping on it though, right?
It should.
It's just a little bit fine, I guess.
Yeah, it's a little bit finer. So essentially, what is the densest residential development in the village area now becomes that village residential category.
Okay, so if we do this, we really need more flashlights with red dots.
Laser pointer.
Yes, thanks. We're above that, right above that.
To the left.
So these are the village
No, no.
residential.
Oh,
Which ones are you referring to?
Well, I was thinking of go up the street there and go to the left.
Right there.
This guy?
No, right there.
These?
Yeah, what's that? What streets are those?
That's
is-
Luciani Street, Raymond and Roberts.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, that's right.
And that would be single, that's
That's in the moderate density.
moderate
single
density,
family.
yeah,
Yes.
less,
Right. So that's not,
so that's not part of the village district?
you're not going to have
That's right.
very tight 1 families and 2 families
Yep.
in that area going forward. That stays single family. And then we have some more general categories. Institutional essentially covers churches, synagogues, different institutional uses such as cemeteries, not-for-profit uses, private schools. We've got got a couple of those and some private institutional land holdings that fall within that. The town and state facilities are the dark blue. Those cover things like the schools. Up in the far left-hand corner, we've got the transfer station up there. That was one where we just had to call it a municipal facility, even though it actually has a couple of ball fields up there.
That's right.
Right, so we had to pick a use, and we went with town facility for that one.
And so therefore you don't show the recreation use there?
Right.
Okay.
Because the problem is it's all one property. It's all one parcel. So trying to split it would be kind of difficult with the GIS system, the way we use it. Yeah. So, industrial, pretty self-explanatory and only in one area of the town. Over off of South Bradley over there. Mixed use, this one category, we have mixed use residential and open space. That is the area known as the Country Club property. So we have that designated as that as that use,
What is it designated as?
residential and open space. Mixed use of that.
Oh.
Why would that be different than any other golf course?
Well, because we're looking, this is the future land use. If we were doing existing land use, this was an existing land use map, then yes, this would be
Yeah, but I'm
open
just
space
thinking that-
recreation.
Why not the Oakland Country Club?
Yeah, and more realistically, that Homewood Acres property, the Homewood Acres golf courses, which is on the other side.
The
How much
smaller
longer
one.
that's gonna continue, I have no idea. But it ain't gonna be forever.
Yeah.
It's not that big. It's only 9 holes.
Yeah, but, with Mac on and
That's why I'm
Is
saying
there any
that.
water in there?
not on the Homewood. I don't think.
No. There's not.
There's a
His son, I
pond,
think, is doing
yeah,
What's that?
it. Mac's son, I think, is doing it.
Yeah.
yeah, but I could see them people wanting to do something with that. The other part is part of, Oak Lane, so I don't see that, but the Homewood Acres, I do see.
Why not Oakland?
Because
Huh?
He's doing well.
He's doing
And you
fine.
can't divide that, we went through that. There's not a lot of lots you can divide that into.
There's a lot of wetlands.
A lot of wetlands. a lot of- Yeah.
But we're
The
still
easements-
just trying to address it. We're not actually saying this is what's gonna happen to it. It doesn't really matter whether he's doing well or not. The fact of the matter is, it's still a large tract of land that we're not designated as anything.
Oh, yeah, but that's interesting. Because we're talking about future land use.
Right.
10 years out.
Yeah, but are we saying that this is what we would like to see it be developed as?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
now. Interesting. Take Oak Lane and take Homewood Acres. What do we,
Well, you can put it in the alternative, I assume, either keep it as open space or,
Well, I think you have to address, I think you have to say this is what you think it should be. I mean, again, if everyone does well, then who cares? What, the idea is what happens next.
I-
Somebody comes in,
Address it, they can come in and
honestly,
put Walgreens in there or
for
something.
that area, for Homewood, at least for where Oak Lane, I'd rather see that open space recreation. Protect it that way.
Then,
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
it's a difficult parcel to develop, there's no water.
Water, there's no sewer, there's...
Well, open space recreation.
No, I meant if you were talking about other,
Now, Homewood Acres is a little...
Isn't Homewood Acres like across the street?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Am
basically.
I right? Like there's a church and
Yeah,
then
there's a
Homewood
church
Acres.
and then,
And someone's doing a whole bunch of work on that house. I thought someone else.
that was a separate parcel.
That's, yeah.
That's the one
It's separate from the golf course?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's right out
And
in
that's,
front.
they sold that and
Yeah.
somebody owns it. That has nothing to do with the golf course. There are homes on the north end or whatever, there are all homes over there.
Yes.
So how much land is there?
Probably around 40 acres, 40, 50 acres.
maybe, just.
40 to
Well,
50.
we should, I think, be saying what we prefer to put there
Okay.
in the long term. Absolutely.
But I do see Baldwin family doing something like that. Absolutely.
Well, doesn't the guy that have the golf club now have an option?
Not on
on
that
the Oak
much.
Lane property.
Right.
He does have an option on that for
And he's gonna exercise.
$1.6 million, I think.
Yeah, he said he's gonna exercise. But the Homewood Acres has nothing to do with that, and I'm willing to bet within the next 5 years, they sell it. Or they do they develop or do something with it.
Same thing happened to Oakland.
Huh?
Same thing that happened to Oakland. So
Well, different.
Less wetlands, less,
I don't think we should just ignore it.
No, I totally agree with you. That's exactly my point. I don't think we should ignore it.
Either one of them, I mean. Either one of them.
And we have, basically, we boil it down to 4 open space categories. We have space that effectively functions as open space that's owned by utilities. general open space, which is more tracts of land it's designated for conservation, and some passive recreation uses that's either held by the town or in...
Can we put street names on these maps?
Yes, yeah. That are held either by the town or private ownership. The state park, one change we need to make is the layer that comes from the state that covers West Rock, we need to make a dark green. Just noticed that today, so that can be consistent with that.
Two-family residential. What's the thing way up on the top there next to Bethany? It's a couple little pieces there, two-family residential.
Those are actually moderate density, single family.
Where is that, buddy? Just ask the realtor.
Yeah. It's not Bishop, it's,
It's all the way up on Bethany line beyond. There's a street on the left there.
There's a couple little pieces up there. Weird.
Yeah. Yeah, there's another one a little bit further over to the
There's
west.
1, 2, 3, there's another.
Yeah, a couple going up,
Going south too?
This doesn't look like it's
Seymour Road.
right.
This one here looks like, Watch Street.
Yeah, I know. That's the one I'm hitting.
1.5 acres. That's a hell of a lot larger than 1.5 acres.
Yeah, that one there.
It's got a little bit of water on it too. That's not, is that Peck Hill?
Peck Hill would be, no, Peck Hill is over more, I think, towards Ansonia.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious what that is. There's a lot of little spot things, two-family residential, which is kind of weird. Street names?
Oh, it's not two-family, it's moderate density.
No, two-family.
Oh, is that supposed to be two-family?
There's that two family.
Oh, I'm looking, I thought this was moderate
oh, there's
density.
another spot up here too.
Yeah, that's moderate density,
Yeah, it's moderate density, single family.
but it's, looks like a
That one-
two-acre parcel.
Yeah, that one is bigger than an acre and a half, yep. Yeah, the others I think are less.
So how is there little pieces of these things all the way through the center, all the way through town? Because the existing house on it is a two-family?
I don't think they're two-family.
No, they're not two families.
Well, moderate density single, oh, moderate density single.
Under acre and a half.
Yes.
Lots.
Exactly.
Basically those that would have to be pre-zoned.
I can't tell by the color, actually.
Yeah.
I think that's in fact, I see Village Residential has little dots in it. I didn't see it on my plan. Oh, no, there it is. Two-family residential. Yeah, you're right. That's probably not two-family residential.
Michael, one thing I don't see on this map is we had identified opportunity sites.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know whether we
Yeah, those
show those on this map or if that's going to be a separate section.
That's going to be in the village plan itself, in that section.
Okay.
Yeah, the village mixed use designation really covers, you know, all the properties within the village district with the exception of those small residential properties and then of course the assisted elderly residential that are already well established in there. So that you're looking at a, you know, kind of a, it doesn't mean that every property is supposed to be mixed use, but that the area as a whole is meant to be a mix of uses from, you know, residential, retail, office, institutional, you know, that sort of collectively together support a traditional village setting and really kind of support the economic development goal of that section of town and that purpose that it has. So that is our
Yeah, it'd be great if we can get this map with streets on it.
Yep.
And also, if you could send us, like, as soon as possible, a larger map of that area.
The village area?
Yep.
The whole, yeah, that whole corner
Yep.
with street names and things like that, because
Can't tell.
this is really kind of hard. And what are we going to be doing with these golf courses, Homewood and Oak Lane?
You mean as far as designation?
Yeah, other than just calling it open space, which is kind of silly. Again, this is like what it can be used for. It's not like what it is.
The desired use.
Excuse me?
The desired future.
Exactly, desired use.
I mean, with no water or sewer, can it be anything other than single family?
Well, I mean, we can designate it that we want it to be open space. We can do that, I agree.
But open space versus open space, recreation versus open space general,
Non-developable. It's going to be a little risky if I own Homewood. But I mean, Oak Lane is kind of a little harder because, well, it's actually the back nine that has all the development issues, right? It's not the front nine.
The front nine has development issues. Because it has the easement to CLMP going across it, 2 easements in fact. Plus, there's a large segment of wetlands issues.
In the front, too?
In the front.
I thought it was just in the back. Okay, so then we should say that, that's what it should, that we want it to be designated, so, I'm sorry, open space, no?
Just open space general?
Well,
Yeah, I'm just saying, I think my memory may be a little,
I think you're right, actually. I thought there was more in the front than in the back, but I have a feeling there wasn't that many houses you can get on any of it.
I think we looked at maybe
It's
15
it's own
houses.
residential right now, right?
Right, and
So-
They exist by special,
so that's why I
So
said.
we want to be consistent, have the same mixed-use residential open space for those areas, for the, the golf courses.
is that really what
Because there's
we
more
want
of a
them
wetlands
for?
issue here.
This is, remember, what we
So
want
that we
to,
know that they're not going to be able to get, development in there if there's wetlands and there's easements. But, I mean, just for the sake of the plan, I don't think we need to be that specific, I think it's more important to be consistent.
I like the idea of open space recreation,
Yeah.
whether it's a golf course or something else, who cares? As long as,
Right. Doesn't get it developed at all. I don't necessarily feel that way on the Homewood thing.
No.
the Homewood's a little different.
No,
And it's
that's what
more
I'm saying. I totally agree.
Better land to develop.
Yes, in the back, it's a little wet all the way in the back.
And that could be an opportunity for some future, being on, that close to Orange, some 55 and older development over there, because it's kind of not right in the center of Woodbridge where it's,
So I don't have a problem with that as far as what you were saying with mixed use, residential and open space.
yeah, I mean, the land
On a Homewood.
tends,
But I think on the country club, I think we should.
Oh, no, I would leave the country, the Oak Lane either as open space recreation or open space general, I don't care, which one.
yeah, I mean, we're not changing the zone,
Right.
we're just talking about, what we foresee the future.
Okay, well, actually, I need a little clarification on that. What are we doing? I mean, if we're saying in our 10-year plan that the Oakland, let's stick to the Oakland Country Club because that's the least developed, for the sake of discussion. If we say we want it to be as general open space, it's interesting, we have open space, general, state park, recreation, but I mean, I don't really care which one it is. If we call it out as open space, what's the zone? Is the zone still saying it's residential?
The zone is still saying it's residential until you change the zone. You'd have to do a zoning change to make it,
Open space.
yeah, you do have an open space zone, I believe that's right.
So you do have to change it.
So-
Otherwise, it's just one single family, you haven't done anything.
You can't have open space in the residential district.
You certainly can.
Well, you can, but it's zoned residential. It's
Zoned
not
residential.
zoned
Zoning is permitting
open
a
space.
residential use.
You have to go through the whole hearing process.
Well, we are, because one of the thing that happens after the POCD is you sit down and start changing.
You start changing the
cleaning up your
zoning,
regs
right.
for everything that we're
Right.
talking about.
Right.
Because some of the things we're doing on here, I mean, the same thing.
Yep.
Right. The zoning, adopting this future land use plan does absolutely nothing to the zoning.
Right.
Zoning doesn't change at all until.
Well, but that is the point of the action then.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I said, what needs to be done if you want to do X, Y, Z. So, again, I think that the Oak Lane should be, open space, you can call it whatever you want, recreation, state park, general. And then Homewood, I think, what Buddy was suggesting, I agree with, mixed-use residential and open space.
Okay.
I agree, I think it is a good spot.
Yeah.
Even without sewer and water, they have. Today, even without sewer and water, from what I was reading, you could put in higher density housing. There's sewer systems that you can put in today that allow it.
All right, so we have a little bit more work to do on that, cleaning that up. All right, so we got that taken care of. And
So when we
essentially,
call something open space recreation, that is potential areas for that recreation can, if they need to expand, that's the places they would go to, as opposed to, we wouldn't tell them to look at a piece of open space general.
the open space recreation, the way we have it defined now, and let's see if you agree with this definition, tracts of land designated as open space for active recreational uses, including ball fields, playgrounds, golf courses, campsites, the like. Active stuff, yes.
Okay. Not trees.
Not trees only. Okay. Good. All right, so in terms of next steps, what we're going to try to do is get all of this stuff put together. We have all the component pieces of the plan now. And now it's a matter of assembling it into a unified document.
Do you not want to go through this now? Is that what you're
To go through this one, I mean, we can in terms of,
We haven't seen this before.
yeah.
What's it? No, I mean, they're all become obvious. It's not something I just do.
So the format is new, but the content is the same as you've seen sort of the illustrated action agendas.
What's going on?
It's gonna be heavy,
Maybe we can have the whole commission review this on Monday after everybody's got a chance to look at it. You know, if we don't have a heavy schedule.
that's why I'm asking if you have any, they won't be here on Monday.
We'll FaceTime.
Well, are you planning on being here Monday?
Monday, next, what date is that? November the 3rd. Yeah, I can check and see if we're, yeah, I think we can probably do that. Yeah, because this was, I had gotten this to Chris before our last scheduled meeting, before the 20th, it was the 18th or something, so.
And, I thought everybody had to.
Yeah.
It's actually not that big a deal, but it's pretty important.
Yeah. No, I
I mean,
agree.
it's not that difficult to go through, but I think it's pretty important. So, together, because we're talking about actually doing all this paperwork, and this is where we're getting to, and then we're suggesting, 1 to 3 years, we want to do this, 4 to 8, we want, whatever that breakdown is, and then, as we said, we'll how did we actually get it if we want it, even if it is 1 to 3 years, what do we do? So that's what this thing does. So this is actually pretty important for us to get input on.
Right, and this gives you the lead agency and the
Right,
time.
the lead agency is, right.
So-
Now, the problem with this is, they do have this ED person, which we've kind of moved off of,
Right.
so.
Okay, so I gathered the ED is no longer there.
ED is long, no, EDC is still there.
Economic Development Commission still.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
But the ED staff
person,
is no longer
Not,
there.
right.
And the town planner?
Town planner
We're
is still there.
assuming yes.
Yeah.
ED is no longer.
So those would be the two major changes in terms of, well, planner's already in there,
Yeah.
our list of implementing agencies, so just the ED going out would be the significant change in the implementing agencies.
Okay, I mean, I don't mind if you want to wait till Monday, but you guys need to be here. I mean, we can't, we don't want to go through this by ourselves.
Right, sure.
Okay.
Oh, that makes sense. So once we do that, the rest of the plan, if we'll wait until the 3rd on this, the rest of the plan, we're starting to assemble, put all the pieces together so that we end up with a consolidated draft POCD document. Once this gets taken care of and gone through on the 3rd, that'll be the sort of the final piece that we need to drop into place. So I would think by maybe the beginning of that second week, around the 10th? Yeah, week of the 10th, first half of the week of the 10th of November, that we would have a draft for you to review. That would give you enough time from, about the 10th, 11th, 12th, before the December meeting, to go through it. And,
I think we need to have a meeting in between then and the December meeting.
okay,
But you have to have, I don't object to having the meeting, but you need enough time, give people enough time to go through the book
I agree.
right.
before you have a meeting.
But to assume that on, at our December meeting, we're gonna.
Oh, no, I'm just saying,
okay.
but
Yeah,
Are you thinking about starting the 65-day clock?
that was what our goal,
yeah.
that's what's in the schedule. At our December meeting.
So you need one towards,
We need the week of the 10th, so the week of the 17th, and then, so it's the week of the 17th.
week of the 17th.
So assuming you can get everything to us by like the 10th or 11th, which would be a week from Monday. Yeah, so today, what's today? Monday?
Today's the 26th.
Oh, so it should be able, I mean, that's 2 weeks,
3, 10, yep, that's,
and that gives us a week, and then we meet the week of the 17th.
yeah, so say the 17th or the 18th. And then
Silence.
that gets you into a position to,
With the 17th, yeah, like with the 19th and 20th.
that gets you then
Busy things.
time to get into December.
That's the week after. How far in advance do you start planning? Oh, you go hunting for turkeys?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, so that's what we should plan on, 17th, 18th.
17th is fine. That's Monday.
All right, good. We gotta wait for all of this.
So we need to tell Chris. You're taking notes with Chris. So she has to check and see what's available.
17th or the 18th.
Preferably the 17th.
And the 3rd's already set because it's a regular meeting.
Yes, right. So I'm assuming you guys are gonna be here then, and we can go over this. So what is your schedule, Michael? Because Michael's retiring.
I'm going to be leaving my loan in McBroom. My last day is going to be this Friday, October 31st, but our Director of Planning, Phil Michalowski, will be here. And Phil has done 35 POCDs?
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Something like that.
He's
been doing it longer than either of us have been alive,
Yes,
so.
he's very experienced at the process and has seen it change and kept up with all the new criteria and everything over the past couple of years, and has been spearheading our efforts in land use planning and comprehensive planning since I started working for Phil in 2002, so we've been working together for a dozen years on plants conservation and development.
Where you headed, Michael?
I'm going to be headed to, I'm still finalizing my exact start date. I'm going to be heading up to a public sector job in Hartford County. So I'm going to be on the other side of the table to a certain degree. So
we're laughing.
That's where I started out many years ago now. So, but going back to my roots. So, but I have enjoyed working with all of you and enjoyed what we've produced and public outreach we've done. It's been a very, very good process. So I'm happy with where we are and where the project is heading. So
We wish you the best. You did a great job.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Tim will keep,
Yep, I'll be sticking with
pieces together.
the last piece of it. That's right.
Tim will be here, and Phil and possibly Ally Church, who was involved a little bit early on, may also be jumping in to help out Phil as well. So we got a full team of planners who are
Try to be nice with you.
They can take it.
yeah.
They'll be taking another job.
They got a
soon, too.
last process.
So, all right. So that's I think that's everything we have for
We want to
tonight.
tell that Chris put out an announcement to the commission members to review this and be ready to.
Yeah, you need to
discuss
send this to us other people. Well, actually, I know you did, but you need to send it again.
Oh, send it again.
And maybe you might want to put a cover on it, taking out the ED person.
PD staff.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So we'll get that out.
And shoot for the 17th and see if, hopefully that works for Phil.
Yep. Get that lined up as soon as we get back in tomorrow.
All right, anything else? Good?
Nope.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.